So it was really indeed a pleasure to hear him speak about today's topic and how we begin the show. The first topic on which we have a discussion this morning. I personally I do not belong to IT field, but whatever I can understand and summarize this in one word about the past, the present, and the future of one thing without which life today would have been, in one word, impossible, is internet. So to speak on the same topic, I would like to invite Michael Castello and Ron Jackson.
When you get to meet people face to face, it's going to just blossom into great relationships. Michael and I met at a conference in 2006. Every person I can think of who's a good friend in this industry and who's become friends out of it, we met at conferences face to face, and there's just no replacement for that. We're doing the best we can by Skype. One day we're going to meet many of you, I know, in person, but it's just a great development for you. Now, Michael Castello, most of you already know his story. If you don't, his accomplishments are such that I've written 2 different cover stories about him at dnjournal.com. The first one was in December of 2006, a story about Michael and his brother David, and pretty much has their entire biography. Michael will talk a little bit more about that as well. And then the second cover story was just put out in February of this year after Michael sold whiskey.com for $3.1 million. Fantastic sale. And the amazing thing to me about Michael is he epitomizes the opportunity that you can find in this industry. He started basically with nothing, and he'll tell you about his journey. And his story is one that's mirrored by almost all of the great players in the industry. Frank Schilling told me once that he remembered going through a hamburger fast food chain trying to find 99 cents in the console of his car to get a hamburger. And now he's making $20 million a year. Everything is possible in this industry. It's a great industry. So I'm going to turn it over to your keynote speaker, and after he talks with you for a bit, I'll rejoin Michael, and we'll do some take some questions, and hear what he has to say on a number of topics. So let me introduce you to my great friend, one of the most successful people in our industry, Michael Castello.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate the intro there. Well done. One of the amazing things about the internet is the fact that while it may be 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock here, we can actually connect through the internet to present ourselves to you in India. What I wanted to speak about, and thank also those there at the conference, Manmeet and the other group, we want to thank you for inviting us. I'm flattered that you wanted me to speak and Ron to speak. I wanted to speak about the past, present, and future internet because I believe they're very much intertwined. What I originally saw back in 1994, when I was actually a struggling musician in California, I'll take it a step back. I actually had lived in Florida and moved to New York City. And I was used to sunny skies and warm oceans. So when I moved to New York City, I remember as a struggling musician, I very much missed the ocean and the sunshine. And I wanted a way to escape. And I used to actually go down to the airport, and I used to take a trip down just on a whim, just to get out of New York City and get out of that rain and drizzle, just to get back to the sunshine. So back in 1993, when our then President Clinton had spoken about opening up the informational superhighway, for me that was a turning point. It was more or less, I remember thinking, what does that mean? Does that mean now someone can actually, let's say in New York or in Hong Kong or in Acapulco, will they actually be able to virtually travel to a different place? Will they actually be able to visit a different place? And that's when the idea of, wow, it would be great to be able to have a PalmSprings.com or a Nashville.com, to whereas if somebody put up a virtual site like that, they could actually have people from around the world visit a virtual place like that. So that is the reason why back in 1994, I went about trying to register domain names. Because in my mind, how does someone find someone else or something else? There has to be an address. And that address is a domain name. And that is what makes a domain name so valuable. So if PalmSprings.com. What I started doing back in 1995 is I actually took about an hour a day and I wrote a page of content for Palm Springs. I used to drive from Los Angeles out to Palm Springs. I used to gather information and create a page a day. And within about 6 months, I had a full-blown website in 1995. I was getting such incredible traffic that I realized there were other people from around the world that were likewise looking to go to Palm Springs. And they were trying to write their itineraries from the information I had put online before they went to Palm Springs to have a better engagement with the area. That's how I actually got advertisers that then advertised on PalmSprings.com. There was a point when my brother and I started out in 1997 getting advertisers on the site. We were making close to $1 million a year just off of that front page of PalmSprings.com. Now, that was great money. And at the time, we realized we had the brand. We had the brand in PalmSprings.com. Now, don't get me wrong, .com it's taken 20 years to get to where we are today. And it's taken a lot of effort and a lot of people spending a lot of money in advertising to, how should I say, bring the world audience to understand that for us at PalmSprings.com meant Palm Springs on the internet. Nashville.com meant Nashville on the internet. So people have learned that .com actually meant the internet. Now I know we have new GTLDs and we have CCTLDs that play a role in this whole marketplace. As I call it, it is a pyramid, a tier, that actually there is a upper market and a lower market. So let's bring ourselves to the present. The present, we're actually at a stage where we have a lot of new GTLDs coming in line. Some are .club, some are .vegas, some are .nyc, and I have a lot of feelings about that. I believe that these names are potentially valuable, but at what level are they valuable? Now, a name like Broadway.nyc would be, to me, somewhat of a valuable name. But again, having a name is just one part of the equation. Are those that buy into the .nyc or the .club, are those that buy into those names going to do what I did back in 1995? Are they going to build pages? Are they going to build viable sites that people can go to? I think that's a very important part of this endeavor. The fact that I went from somebody who was a struggling musician to actually, in the last 20 years, being able to live completely off my business of having domain names, there's a reason why I was able to do that. There was a reason why I was able to have consistency across all of those years. So for me, it was tapping into the viability, the trustability, the quality of a domain name, and then building within that something that people could actually go to and actually find information or find an advertiser and create money for themselves and create an experience for themselves. That's very important. What I believe, which I really wish I had been able to come, and I'm sure Ron, to India, because India is a unique place. Number one, for us, the fact that I can even speak English to all of you is an incredible situation for me. It means, for me, English is the language of commerce. And those of you that are there are dealing within our language here. And likewise, you can communicate with us, we can communicate with you. So names that I may find viable and valuable, you may also feel are valuable. One of the names I own, which is Bullion.com, what I found to be very, very interesting is that the leads that I would get from around the world, the area where I got the most leads was from India. I always found that to be very interesting, why Bullion had such a huge draw in India. So you could see these names can draw globally. Very important. Secondly, India is technologically advanced. From where we are here in America, we look at India as being a very advanced country. Listen, the internet is an even playing field. It means if I can do it, anyone can do it in India, anyone can do what I did, anyone can build a business, anyone can make money and succeed. But there are certain formulas that work. So one of the things I'm going to say, which I believe for the future, is going to be very important for those of you that buy into whether it's a .com, a .in, or a new GTLD. It's the difference between a $3 million word and a $30 million word, and it's just this. Does that name conjure up an image? Does that name conjure up an emotion? I own Rate.com. Rate.com doesn't conjure up an image for me. It would make a great app. It would make a great place for somebody to find a mortgage or a loan, but it doesn't conjure up an image. The future technology is going to be, as we advance, people are virtually going to go to places. They're virtually going to be able to do things. And if a word conjures up an image or an emotion, it's going to be very, very valuable. So I will choose from my own names. Traveler.com conjures up images, emotions. Daycare.com conjures up emotions. Nashville, the same thing. IOwnRate.com doesn't conjure up emotions. Cost.com doesn't conjure up emotions, but it would make a great app. Okay, there's a difference there. So I would say if anybody's going to buy a new domain name in the future, it's important that that word, if it's Hollywood.tattoo, conjures up some kind of image, some kind of emotion. That's what's going to make the difference between, as I said, a $3 million name or a $30 million name or more. Very, very important. I don't know how much time I have here, but I'm going to speak about one or two more things. The future has gone from an economy that's been an industrial economy. I believe it's going to go more towards a name economy. What I mean by a name economy is something like Scotch or the word champagne. The reason why those countries or those places have control over those words is because those words mean money. They mean commerce. So to me, the future is language. We even think in language. I mean, somebody once asked me, well, what happens if we don't use words anymore? What happens if we just use our minds? I could tell you, I still think in words. I think most of you think in words. Words are very, very important. That's where the power is. That's where the leverage is. So when you can get a word, that means anybody in the world could find you from that one word without having to go through a Facebook or a Google or a walled garden, as we call them. That makes it very, very valuable and very, very powerful and very, very political. I'll leave it on that note. Ron, I think we'll switch over to Ron. Ron, if you have anything that you want to say there, I'm sure there are other things that we could talk about, but I want to throw it back to you.
Thank you, Michael. That was very interesting. I did want, in case that's not in your program, for those of you, and I'm sure there are many who don't know who I am, I publish a domain name journal at dnjournal.com, which is basically a trade magazine for the domain industry. And I started that New Year's Day of 2003, so I've been doing it 11 years now. And I started as a domain investor, like many of you, and I still buy and sell domain names. The reason the magazine was started, it was never my intention to do that, but when I came into the business in 2002 and started looking for resources, I found that there was no trade magazine like there were in other industries that I had been in. So having been a journalist almost my entire life, I'd been a television reporter, I decided I could start a magazine because I found the business so fascinating. So that's how DN Journal came about. So I just wanted to give you that background. And what I wanted to throw to Michael, the first question I have, things were so much different when you entered the space, Michael, in the mid-90s. You were one of the true pioneers and started buying domains when no one else really envisioned at all where they could go. In fact, I know many of you were ridiculed for spending money on domain names back then. And Rick Schwartz has often said that that was a special moment in time when just a handful of people recognized something no one else did. So there was a great opportunity that you have now been able to take advantage of. But now here we are, 20 years later, and it's a very different landscape. You can't go find great .com domains inexpensively anymore. Shortly after they started catching hold, for some period of time, you could make a lot of money by parking those domain names. But that's not doing so well now either. In fact, it's plummeting. So I'm wondering, for those who are watching us in India, and being in the different landscape that we're in today, where would you see opportunities for them? What do you think they should concentrate on? Because there are always new opportunities. The business keeps changing, but that creates new opportunities. What's your advice there?
Well, what I would say is it's twofold. Does the person in the audience want to be a flipper, where they just register domain names and they just want to sell domain names? Or does also a person in the audience want to venture into building a business? Now, I've done both, but I would say this, that one of the names I have is Marriott.com. It's actually an island where Bora Bora is, and it's a beautiful island. I think it's where Mel Gibson did Meet Me on the Bounty. Beautiful island. I haven't spent any time working on the name. It's a basic site, but if somebody actually bought Maria-Island anything club, or Maria.club, let's say, and they spent the time to actually build pages that actually would be very, very well indexed by the search engines, they could actually beat me at my own game. Meaning, they could actually build a business using search to augment their business and to get traffic and advertisers. Whereas my name, because let's say I'm not working on Maria.com, is sitting there, it's actually not getting the kind of traffic or play that it needs. Right there, anybody could start a business by using their time to convert it into effort and to convert it into content. That can be very valuable. People will actually either be able to sell advertising through a site like that, or maybe even be able to sell that content at some point. You're converting your time into money. The second part of that equation is, let's say somebody just wants to buy a domain name. They just want to flip them. While I will tell you, the market is getting very saturated. So even though I have bullion.com, there could be 2,000 other bullion.whatevers. And that does somewhat, I think, make it a less of a chance to really get the kind of return on a domain name you would want. But that's not to say you couldn't. Because if I had golf.club, that's a fairly good name. If it's something you can remember, it's valuable. That's what's important. So now there's not going to be direct navigation, let's put it that way. Somebody in Hong Kong is not going to say, oh, let me go to golf.club. But if an advertiser advertised golf.club, it's a very sticky name, meaning people will remember that word. So in advertising, it's actually valuable. In direct navigation, it isn't. But there's a situation where a name could be potentially worth something. So, in answering your question, there are ways to make money, but you have to be very, very smart and prudent about how you look at a name. You got to be careful with domain names, because a lot of times you get involved in it. It almost becomes like eating a potato chip. You keep eating another one, and then another one, and another one. All of a sudden, before you know it, you have 500 names under one dot, CCTLD or GTLD, and it's like, wow, I've kind of played a big hand in this. You got to be careful. But if you think about it, and you listen to people out there who are the experts, who really know, I believe, how to make money, and like those of you that are here at this conference, very, very important to hear from those that have made money, those that have made a business in it. There are a lot of people saying, oh, I can do this and I can do that. Listen, it's important that you listen to people who have succeeded in this business. Not 1 year, not 2 years, but 5 years, 10 years. Listen to those people. They're the ones who will save you lots of money. You'll be able to make lots of money. This is a huge business. This is a gold mine of a business. But you have to be careful about how you spend your money.
Very good advice. And I think one of the best pieces of advice that I got when I started in 2002 was to diversify, to develop as many revenue streams as I could. That's something, again, that Rick Schwartz, who a lot of people call the Domain King, always preached. And it really helped me, because when I started, I was buying all of the wrong kinds of names. I didn't understand what made a domain name valuable. Being a journalist, I thought this is going to be easy for me because words are my stock in trade. So, I've got a big edge, but I didn't. I didn't understand what would make a business want to buy a name. There's a learning curve. So one of the biggest mistakes people make is to jump in and start buying a lot of domains before they understand that. And it's a mistake I made and almost everyone that I know made. As I came to understand what made a good name, then I would buy the right things, and I started making more sales. But one thing I did, by accident again, was to start DN Journal, was to develop one site on a topic I was passionate about. I did it mostly as a hobby and as a way to network with other people and learn, and to my surprise, it developed into a business, and there's another revenue stream. Parking was yet another revenue stream. You have 1,000 domain names, you can't develop them all, so you could park them, though again, that's a diminishing revenue stream, so a lot of times you want to look elsewhere. Sales have been great, and I'm going to be putting out a newsletter soon on second quarter sales, just exploded this year. So domain sales are great, but you can also lease domains and open up another market. It's been very useful to me because I came out of a small business environment. I used to own brick and mortar record stores. And I knew that a lot of those mom and pop stores can't afford to spend a few $1,000s, maybe not even a couple of $1,000s on a domain name, but they could spend $100 a month, so you could perhaps lease a domain, make it affordable to them, and give them a web presence that way. You might consult people once you become an expert. You might broker domains. But think of a lot of different ways to do it. And the beauty of that is when the economy goes bad, and we just came through a horrible global recession, as you all know, when one aspect of that is down, often another one is up. And that really helped me get through the recession. We had revenue stream from DN Journal, so even when domain sales fell off and parking dropped, I had that revenue stream. So that's a piece of advice that has served me very well. Michael, another question that I think everyone in the audience would like to know, because I assume that almost everyone who's in attendance owns some domain names, and you're interested in selling them. So a question I always get is, what's the best way to sell them? You just sold a multi-million-dollar domain. Some people think it's you get on the phone and cold call, you send a bunch of emails, you get a broker. I have certain thoughts on that, but you have a lot more experience and have had a lot more sales. So what would you advise people on the best way to find a buyer for the domain names?
Well, again, I think it comes down to where is your market. I tend to have a portfolio of names that are .com, so I have a very large market. The whiskey.com sale, strangely enough, I never really went out to try to sell it, but I had a friend who asked if he could sell one of my names, and I told him, well, see if it could sell. First thing that came to my head was whiskey.com. And what he did was he approached every owner of whiskey.something, and I think at the time he emailed 200 of them, and he potentially had 200 potential buyers that wanted to up their market or up their name. And it just so happens that whiskey.de, which is a German company that they had actually purchased that name for 6 figures. They had been in business 20 years before that. They saw such a great return on having whiskey.de that when the email came in for whiskey.com, they said, wait a minute, we're doing such great local business. Imagine what we could do on a global business. So that's the reason why that market was there for me. If I was coming out with, let's say, if I was buying into, let's say, a new GTLD, those are niche markets. They are niche markets. So to one extent, you actually have somewhat of a better playing market because it's valuable to that market who bought into them. It's very important that people find out true numbers on who bought into a new GTLD. So if there are 200 registrants for a new GTLD or 1 million registered for a new GTLD, you potentially have a greater market there. But I believe that that is your market. I'm not exactly sure that somebody's going to buy outside of that market unless, let's go back to .tattoo. Let's say you have Hollywood .tattoo, or let's say you have New Delhi .tattoo, okay? Or Mumbai .tattoo. Not a bad name. If they're tattoo parlors, I don't know if they are, to be honest with you, in India. But I know in America we have a lot of tattoo parlors. Potentially, your market, there's probably going to be, in Hollywood .tattoo, maybe 40 tattoo shops. So potentially there you have a market that you could go in and say, you know what, I have Hollywood .tattoo. There's 40 potential markets that say, you know what, I want a better web presence. I like Hollywood .tattoo. How much you want to sell it for? You could probably get a quick return, a quick flip on that. But again, the markets depend. You've got to know your market. The difference between whiskey.com, the WHISKY, which is single malt Scotch whiskey, and whiskey spelled WHISKEY, did I spell that right? I believe so. The KY as opposed to the KEY was $3 million because the owners of whiskey.com said they wouldn't spend no more than $300,000 for the bourbon spelling of whiskey. You've got to know that market. You've got to know why one name is worth 10 times more than the other. It's very important that you know your market. So if you just buy lots of different names and lots of different fields, you're taking a crapshoot. It's like going to Vegas and pulling a slot machine. Yeah, once in a while, somebody hits the ching, 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 somebody hits the number, but believe me, most of those wins in Vegas, most of them are losses. So again, you only hear about the wins, but you don't hear about all the losses. You got to be very, very careful about what your market is, know your market, know what you buy into.
One thing I want to say, because we don't have an eye on the clock for the conference host, you can alert me when you want, but Michael and I will gladly take over the whole conference. We can sit and talk for hours with no problem, but before the show, I did say that I was sure that the audience would like to get some questions in as well. If you still have the technical facility to do that, I have a message screen. You can let me know. Until you give me that cue, I will go ahead and send Michael some questions. But okay, Michael, I just got this message. So it looks like, unless I hear otherwise, you don't have that technical capability at the moment. So I understand we've got about 5 minutes left. So there's another question I wanted to throw out to Michael. With us in the U.S., we're very .com centric. Of course, that's the global brand, and as whiskey.com sales showed with the .de buyer wanting it, that's still the gold standard around the world. But the CCTLDs have a very big place, obviously, in their internet infrastructure. I spent a lot of time traveling around Europe this summer, and you see in Holland .nl everywhere. In Italy, I saw .it everywhere, .fr everywhere. Obviously, in India, you have .in. So those are obviously in widespread use, better established than the new GTLDs are by a mile. But every market has its own idiosyncrasies. I'm not an expert by any means on the .in market, but I understand it's a difficult market for you to trade in because of restrictions on it. I know the Australian market was the same way. For the longest time, you couldn't register a .com, .au domain unless you had an actual business there. I think Norway is similar. But I think there would be a great demand for the .ins. If you can, get over whatever those hurdles are and however high they are. But my question for Michael was just that, wondering what your thoughts were on the CCTLD markets around the world.
I love them. If you've ever been to a soccer game or a football game, you can see that everybody carries their flag, proudly. So your CCTLD is your country brand. How you promote your CCTLD is very important to the rest of the world. That's so important, the image that you give for your country and how your country uses .in. So not everybody is going to be a global business. Let's be realistic. In Palm Springs, at the beginning, I told my brother when we were doing sales, all you have to do is sell 2% of the businesses out there and we'll be millionaires. You don't have to sell everybody on your business. You can have a country domain business that does very well without ever having to go outside of your borders. There are some that do, and there are some that don't. So again, it's knowing your market. But obviously, if there's a localized market that's let's say bullion.in. Okay, as much as I had those kind of leads from India, I would imagine bullion.in is a great name in India. So right there, that's a very valuable name. Again, to me, CCTLDs, I've always thought were a great investment, always, and they will always be. Okay, but there is a hierarchy, and the hierarchy within India is going to be IN. That's the top of the pyramid in my book. And in Italy, it's whatever. It's the top of the pyramid. But on a global market, I tend to feel as though .com has it because it crosses borders. There isn't the kind of problems with borders when you have a .com. It's a neutral name. It means the internet. But when you say .in or .es or .de, it's very personal the people within that country. So I believe they are valuable because they're emotional. And on that, I think we're probably at the end of our session here, Ron. So I think we're gonna turn this back over to Manmeet. Ron, did you want to say something else? Oh, one more thing. I did want to say if anybody has any questions or would like to contact me, you can email me at michael@ccin.com. I wonder if I can bring that up here real quick. I think I might be able to. Let's see. If I can pull this up, I'm going to try. Let's see, share screen. Can you see that at all? I don't think so. Maybe not.
Fortunately, that's a simple, easy domain to remember. CCIN. They should know the IN part by heart.
There it is.
.com.
That's my daughter. Maybe you can see that.
Michael@ccin.com.
Okay. So we'll leave that over to you, Ron, and then we'll thank. I want to thank everybody for allowing us to take the time. We wish we could have been there, but maybe next time we will be there to greet you. But we're flattered and honored that you invited us. Thank you.
Thank you so much too, Michael. It's great talking with you again, as always. And thank all of you. I'll be back a little bit later on in the conference. I understand that Deepak Daftari is going to have an in-person keynote for you. As soon as we say goodbye, Deepak, I had the pleasure of meeting at the NamesCon conference in Las Vegas last January. Take advantage of these networking opportunities. There's Michael's email just popped up on the screen, michael@ccin.com. Take advantage of this networking opportunity. It's a golden opportunity that you have there today. Get around and talk to everyone. It's the most valuable thing that you can possibly do to jumpstart your business. So I'll turn it back over. After Deepak is done, I'm going to come back with Adam Dicker, the owner of dnforum.com, who's got some fabulous specific advice on how to make money in any number of ways on the internet. So again, thanks again to all. We love you. Thank you for your attention and for the invitation. So long.
Thank you, Michael and Ron. It was a lovely session that we had.